Hello everybody, this is Drew Douglas in for day 11 of the WordPress for Designers series on blog.themeforest.net. I want to quickly say thank you to Dennis again. Dennis has been making these awesome and really funny WordPress for Designer wallpaper series for us. So he's been releasing them for download. Hopefully he'll have a download link for us. I don't want to do it to make sure it's okay with him, but I'm sure Dennis will put a link up to download this because some of the details in here are just really funny. So I think you guys will get a kick out of that. But I do have good news. The missing Photoshop document is no more. We have picked a PSD to work with. I think you guys are really going to like it. And we're going to spend all day today. First we're going to look at all the different pages and parts of the PSD, and then we're going to talk about how we're going to use how the PSD is set up and the structure there, and how we're going to somehow incorporate that into a WordPress theme. How are we going to be able to do this and that with WordPress? And so we'll kind of lay out our game plan here. And then at the very end of today, we're gonna touch on extracting some of the images out of the PSD, and getting them ready for the web, and getting them ready for our theme. So one thing I need to put out there to everybody is that the PSD we're going to be using, and I'll show you the author and the home page of the PSD here in a second, is for sale on ThemeForest, and for that reason we can't or we won't give out the any image sources or the PSD itself, because we have to respect the author. We can't just go out giving free PSDs or the images to someone's PSD that's for sale on ThemeForest that other people have paid money to have. So if you want to, like I said, I'm gonna give credit to the author here in a second and show you his homepage. In fact, let's just do that now. Let's take a look at the theme we'll be using in Firefox. The theme is called Paper Business. It's by a great designer and web developer named I think it's Jeffrey. I know maybe I'm not saying that right. I know it's not Joe Frey. But yeah, I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing that, but I'll just say Jeffrey for now. And you guys can jump on me later if I'm saying it wrong. But yeah, we're going to be using the Paper Business theme, and we'll take a look at some of the screenshots now. Like I said, if you want to buy it, and follow along completely, it's $10. If not, you can still follow along and learn just as much, because it's not really about what PSD you use, but the techniques you use and the fundamentals you learn when building a WordPress theme. So, and I'll have this link for you guys below in case any of you want to check it out. But once again, thanks to Jeffrey, for letting us work with his PSD in the series. And let's take a look at some of the screenshots. It's really, really cool theme. Let's go to the home page. This is what's going to be our main home page of our WordPress theme, the Paper Business home page. You can see here we have a nice little kind of folded paper area for the content, and a nice place for a slider that will probably integrate some jQuery there, and pull some custom blog posts out and put them into this section. Something of that nature, and this will be a cool little project for us, working on this little slider here too with WordPress. You scroll down, there's a nice little tagline, and who we are, what we do, latest blog, and we'll get into all the details of those later. And nice little paper footer. So it's a very paper theme. I'm going to go ahead and just go over all the different screenshots because we need to know about them, obviously. This is an About Us page, so this is our page where we'll use for just single static pages, page.php. Next we have our services, which is also just a single page, a little more things on the sidebar. So already you should be thinking maybe widgets could go there. We could do some pretty creative stuff with the sidebar paper here. And this one has a spot for custom image. We could do that with a with a custom field, which we'll get into. Next we have a cool portfolio page that we'll be doing, and you can kind of see that each little project has a little description here, and then you can view more details or view the live site. What we'll probably end up doing for this is using a custom query to pull a post out of a portfolio section or something of that nature. Not sure yet, but you can already see how we can use some of the things that we've been learning to pull out custom content. And this is the blog page. This will be index.php. Notice that the blog page is not on the home page, but this is not hard to do with WordPress, and we'll get obviously completely into that. But the blog page is nice enough looking, just like every other page. It's got a search and categories here. That will be just a breeze for us to do with WordPress. That will just be super simple. And lastly, we have a nice little contact us form. Some custom input boxes here. Nothing too advanced. So, like I said, I think that we've picked a really practical but nice looking, kind of papery theme here that can really go well with WordPress theme development. So let's take a look at the Photoshop document, and I was building a theme for us, but they said this one wasn't good enough, but I just thought I'd mention it here. They told me not to, but I'm going to. And so yeah, I'll give this out for free or something. So if you guys want to, like make a WordPress theme out of this one, which I spent like 25 minutes on the other night while I was watching Doug, and so I'll give this out for everybody, but I just wanted to kind of put that out there that I tried to make one too, but it didn't work out. So here is the PSD we'll be working with. Like I said, we're not going to give this out, but it's okay for us to show you screenshots and how it's organized and things like that. Jeffrey did a really good job organizing all the different content layers for us, so it's really easy for us to just hide and show the different pages and like the blog page or the home page. I'm sorry if my computer runs a little slow. Photoshop tends to be a bit of a memory hog. So you can see we can just close out the contact, and now we have our home page here. And what I want to point out is, first I kind of want to go over things that we need to think about before we even start slicing our images, since we're working with WordPress. And then at the end we're going to talk about how we're going to pull out some of these specific images and what techniques we're going to use. And then we'll get more into slicing and extracting them and saving them for the web later. So let's take a look at our home page. Okay. One of the things I noticed here is obviously the slider and the content here. Are we going to do this as a one static page? And if so, how are we going to get the different content into here? What about these three columns? Are these going to be just hard-coded HTML columns that are floated when someone writes a page? Or are we going to make it easier, and are we going to pull these from somewhere? Latest blog obviously will be easier because we're just going to pull that from the blog, but what about who we are and what we do? How do we get all of this here, making it easiest for the user? These are all things that we need to keep in mind here and talk about. So probably one of the best ideas for the slider content here is we could set up a category called featured slider. And then we could use a custom query to pull out and format our HTML into our slider and let jQuery handle the rest of it. So that would be one solution to how we'd pull in a slider, would be pulling post only from a certain category that we created, and then excluding any other ones. And we will definitely be getting into a lot of that later. And then, all we would have to do is use one of the many slider plugins that are available. We'll look to see which one works best for us. If we don't find one that works best for us, we'll build our own. So these are the kind of things that we need to keep in mind, because it's not just like a hard-coded HTML template. It's we need to think about how are we going to make this work with WordPress, and how are we going to make this easiest for the user to get all of this information out onto their website. What else did I want to go over on the home page here? Okay, let's talk about images now. I think that's all I wanted to talk about on the home page for now. If I hide that and look at the background here, I'm not sure if you're not in full screen if you can see this, but I'll use the marquee tool to kind of demonstrate this. Right about here, sorry about that, there's a big radial gradient here that's giving it a nice kind of lighter blue glow that gets, obviously dissipates as it goes on. It's a radial gradient. And so that's something that we're going to have to think about when we get our WordPress theme built. And if you see, if I go to background, and if you put your player right now, your Blip TV player in full screen, and if I hide that layer, you can see that kind of half transparent gradient is really adding a nice effect to our theme. So we're going to have to incorporate that, and what we're going to end up doing is saving it as a transparent PNG, like so. I know that's kind of hard to see, but and then we're going to end up positioning it as we need to, where it should be. And then the next thing I want to go over, I'm going to hide the gradient for now, just so you guys can see this a little bit more clearly. If you look at the background layer, it might look just like a solid blue if you take one click, some kind of blue color if you take a quick glance at it, but it actually has some noise in the background, which gives it that real kind of nice papery feel to it, which was probably done, through the noise filter. So we need to figure out a way to have this background, go down for as much of the content as we need, but without having, a gigantic image. And we have time, so I'll go over a demo of that right now. What we're going to do, we need to turn the gradient back on, because we don't want to take anything that's glowing really from the gradient, because obviously that's a little bit of a lighter color with the overlay there. So I'm just going to scroll down to the bottom, and the only thing we're going to need to do to get our background like this is oh, by the way, you can use the slice tool for this. I just want you guys to be able to see what I'm doing here, and that way you can see the little ants after I made my selection. But we'll get more into the slice tool next series. And I can just take a chunk, it could be even smaller, but just enough to get some kind of a pattern there, and go to Edit, Copy Merge, New, paste it in there. And that's all we're going to need for our background. It's just a little chunk like that, and then we're just going to repeat it on the X and the Y. We repeat it on both axes. The last thing you would have to do for that is just go to, if you don't know Photoshop that well, save for web and devices. Again, you could have used the slice tool for this, but I'm just doing it for visibility purposes. We probably can just get away with high. For now, we'll just do very high. It's still a very small image. So hit save. Just save it to the desktop for now as background repeat.jpg. So that is how we're going to do the background. I kind of wanted to point that out because I don't know if you guys can see on my screen if there's this kind of radial gradient here and then this kind of noise pattern in the background. So I wanted you guys to understand that. I think there's a few more images I wanted to go over. Yes, okay. On the Contact Us page and on most other pages besides the slider, this little paper background here is going to need to be a dynamic height, meaning it's going to need to stretch as depending on how much content they have in here. And again, if you put it in full screen, since it's a paper theme, it's got this kind of crinkly, nice paper texture to the background. But that's going to be, it presents the problem and the question to us. How do we get this to be a dynamic height and at the same time having the nice little images? So we're going to open up the contact folder, and let me find the featured here, and let me hide the paper plane for now. So what we're going to do is this is actually going to be 3 images, and like I said, we're going to get into the slice tool tomorrow, but I'll go ahead and hide the text for you guys too. Okay, so we also have a drop shadow around it too that we need to make sure we preserve, but we're going to kind of take this in top, middle, bottom parts. Now the top is just going to be something like, and this is not exact yet, but it's going to be something like just taking like this kind of a snippet. Something real small that we can have the top on. In the middle, what we're going to do is we're going to find a good place and make sure we include the drop shadows here. And again, we'll get more into this tomorrow when we start slicing everything. But and we're going to find a good section here that kind of repeats that paper texture right below where we made our top thing, and we're going to use that as the basis, as our basis for repeating on the y-axis. And then finally at the bottom, since we have a drop shadow and more crinkles, we're just going to do something like this and take the bottom. So we're kind of going to do a little CSS trickery, and those of you that have developed themes before and done things like this, that's probably one of the more obvious solutions. But if we break it down into 3 steps, we can achieve that dynamic height that we're looking for. And that's kind of, I think, most of the things I wanted to cover, because I have a few questions for you guys before we wrap this up for today, and we get more into the slicing tomorrow. The reason we didn't get more into the slicing today is that those of you that want to purchase this, so you can, like those of you that are completely new to this, if you want to follow along completely, I'll give you a chance to go out and do so. But like I said, either way, please don't be put off by us not releasing the PSD, because you will still be able to follow along 100%. So that said, I have a few questions for you guys when it comes to how we're going to do the actual coding in the HTML. Basically, the question is, would you guys prefer that we slice all the images and we build and we use it to build an HTML kind of skeleton and theme first, meaning that we take the PSD and we make it just a regular HTML theme first, and then kind of take that and make it into what we need with a WordPress theme? Or would you rather that we just jump into, take our images and jump into just making the WordPress theme? Either way is fine with me. Some pros and cons. If we do it the HTML way, that's fine. That'll probably be good for a lot of you that haven't gone from the PSD to the slicing to the CSS and the HTML markup. We can do it that way, but when we go to do it from WordPress, it'll almost be like starting over, because we can use a lot of our CSS as a basis, but since some of the markup is just going to be different just because of the way WordPress works and it's kind of going to be organized, since the markup is going to be a little different, we are going to have to kind of start over once we start on the WordPress thing. So why don't you guys let me know what you want to do in the comments with that. I'm fine with either way, and I will happily do either one. But do you want to go from images to an HTML theme, or do you want to go from images straight into building our WordPress theme and not worrying about making kind of an HTML skeleton first? So let me know. And then secondly, I was going to ask you guys if you wanted to do the slider, but I think that either way we're going to, because it's just, it's kind of the popular thing, I guess. I see a lot of those, and I'm sure a lot of people are wondering how to do them. So I guess make sure I'm right there, but I'm guessing you guys also want to do the jQuery or whatever JavaScript library slider. So those are all the questions I have for you guys. That's the introduction to the PSD we'll be working with. Like I said, thanks again to the author of the PSD, Jeffrey, I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name. Um, but thank you for letting us use this. And I think that's all I wanted to cover, guys. So we are going to take it step by step next time, and we're going to slice all of the images and just take it one step at a time so you can see kind of how things are taken from a PSD to a full WordPress theme. So I'm glad you guys are still with us, and have a great day.